Hi, this is Nancy with On Point TV. We are again down in my studio on a Saturday morning. It's still really too cold in Michigan to be outside riding a jet ski. Not that I ever would, but I'm just saying it's still too cold to do that. So I want to show you today some techniques for free motion quilting with heavyweight threads in the bobbin. This is a really cool technique, can really add a lot of pizzazz, honestly, to your quilting. I'm going to start by showing you a couple of samples. I'm going to show you some of the threads that I use for this, and then I'm going to take you to my two machines. So we're going to do this with a drop-in bobbin and with a front load bobbin, okay? So Athena is now going to hand me the camera so I can kind of show you really up close what I've done. All right, ready? Okay, there we go. All righty. Hi, Michelle. Okay, so this is the first quilt that I did this really extensively on. It's a Karen K. Stone design, as I recall. I can't quite remember what she called it, but I called it Anxiety. So as we come over here to the borders, this is what I want to show you. This is quilting with a Razzle Dazzle thread. So it was Ricky Timms that kind of came up with this one. It was by Superior. I honestly assume it's still available. I've had some of my threads for so long, I'm not 100% sure. So the reason I wanted to do it on here is this was kind of a border print, which I love the border print, but if I had just done it with a regular thread, I wouldn't have really been able to see the quilting. So for this one, I also did some trapunto. I had copied the design onto a polyester stabilizer, so it was a little bit more involved than just bobbin quilting, but you see that. Okay, and as long as we're here, I want to show you some of the bead work. So I added beads to the center of that. You can see these little guys, I added beads here. So, you know, when in doubt, add beads. All right, so now we're going to go to a second one. Now this is an embroidery design. If I recall correctly, this is a Ricky Timms embroidery design. My friend Donna did the embroidery. And then she didn't know what to do with the blocks, and she was like, make them pretty. So I did. And then I came to the border. Now in this case, honestly, the border print was too plain. There was just not enough going on. So instead of just adding quilting, I decided to add quilting with a heavyweight thread. Now in this case, this thread is a YLI rayon. It's a heavyweight rayon. Again, I did do a machine trapunto on this particular one. The one I'm going to work on today, we're not going to do that on, but you can see here where like these lines of stitching, this quilting is a little bit more raised up, and then this holds it down, and that has to do with the way that I did the trapunto technique, which I'm sure we'll talk about someday. So I want to bring in the stars of the show. These are my threads. These are the heavyweight threads that I will do this kind of work with. So if we look at these, this is a Quilting metallic, and you can see how heavy that thread is. I've got some other Quiltings that are not quite so heavy. And these are the ones that I could find way back when, and then it became a very popular technique. So people started doing more of it. So here is a Madura Decor. I do not think this is available anymore, and that is a heavyweight rayon. This one is from YLI. This is a Pearl Crown rayon. Again, a heavyweight, and it's pearled, meaning that it's twisted like that, like a pearl cotton would be. Another time you might want to use this technique is when you're using a metallic thread that is just a pain to work with, wants to break all the time. Well, you can put this in your bobbin and quilt upside down. So we've got some other ones. This was a new one that I just got a couple of years ago while I was at an AQS show. I believe, yep, that is a YLI rayon and metallic braid. Now that one's quite heavy. I've never done bobbin work with this, but I have couched it down. But I am going to someday do bobbin work with that. So here's a couple of other ones. These are the ones that Ricky Timms designed for Superior threads. These are the Razzle Dazzle. These are the heavyweight metallics. And then one of my favorites is this rayon from YLI. This is a YLI rayon. Now, the one problem with these is that the thread will not stay contained on the spool. So that is why I brought in my Hugo's Amazing Tape, because look at how it, when you wrap it with the Hugo's Amazing Tape, keeps everything in control, keeps everything looking nice. And the idea, as you can see here, is that it just wraps around and it's kind of like saran wrap. It sticks on itself. So those are some of the threads that I use for this kind of work. So now I'm going to hand the camera back to Athena. All right, Athena is now in control, and I'm going to go over to my machine. So I want to show you this technique done with two kinds of machines. Now, it's really easy for me to do this on my larger quilting machine, but it's not so easy with some of the newer machines that have a drop-in bobbin. So I want to disclaimer something here. We are going to be messing with, playing with, changing the tension in our bobbin. Ooh, that can be really scary to a lot of people. I feel very confident doing that with my machine. I change it all the time. But I would not think it's not a bad idea. I'm not sure how that all sounded, but talk to your sewing machine mechanic. I know and trust my sewing machine mechanic. For those of you in Grand Rapids, that happens to be Tim Owen at Smith Owen Sewing Center. I trust him. So if I ask him, can I do this with my machine? He's going to tell me how to do it and how maybe not to do it. And I also know that if I mess up my machine bad enough, Tim can fix it. So know your sewing machine mechanic. If you have any questions, I'll try to help you. I know that not everybody lives where you have a sewing machine mechanic that you can talk to. But that would be my little disclaimer. I am not telling you to do anything to your machine. I am telling you what I do to my machine and how it works for me. There, okay, disclaimer over with. So we're going to work with my FAF Creative 4.0. This machine, come on in here, Athena, has a drop-in bobbin. So I want to show you that I'm working here with my, let me adjust my light a little bit. There. I'm working here with my Sensomatic floating foot, which is pretty much the normal for most of the FAFs now, and my drop-in bobbin. So if we open that up, you see the normal drop-in bobbin. I am now going to show you what I do if I need to do bobbin work, so try and stay close. So first, the hardest part, trying to find your little skinny screwdriver. I spent 15 minutes trying to find this morning. Okay, I'm going to pop this top. I'm going to take this little guy off, and I'm going to take out the bobbin and the holder. So this is the bobbin holder. This is the thing that kind of scares everybody. On the drop-in bobbins, let's see if we can get a really good light here. Can we see? Inside that little hole, can we see it, is a little screwdriver, or a little screw. That is the screw that adjusts the bobbin tension. I am now going to take my skinny screwdriver and put it in there, and I'm going to loosen the tension on this machine a half plus a smidge. For this machine, that loosened tension works for the thick thread that I'm going to use. So now I'm going to put it back into the machine. And like I said, I honestly have no problem taking apart, putting my machine back together, at least this part of it. Tim's never taught me how to do the other part. Someday I want to be a sewing machine mechanic. Now, when you normally load one of these bobbins, you load it in, you bring it over here, you put on the cap, and you cut off your bobbin thread. For this technique, you're not going to do it exactly like that. So here is the bobbin thread that I've chosen. It's a heavyweight one. This is one of the newer ones from YLI. It was fabulous. It's got sparkles on it. Love this. I'm going to put this in my machine. I'm going to put it through the bobbin guide and stop. I am not going to bring it forward and cut it off. I'm going to take my top thread, I'm going to put my presser foot down and up and lift my presser foot. Now I'm going to lift up until I find my bobbin thread. So now I have my bobbin thread up here to the top and I can pull it. I don't know if there's a magic tension to this. It's trial and error more than anything else. Now I put my bobbin cap up. So now I'm going to do a little bit of test quilting. So I'm going to bring this, I've just got this little sample here. I'm going to be working from the back side of it. This is very, very important. Even if you have a machine with a thread cutter, you do not want to use it now. You want to do this all manually. So I'm going to drop my needle, raise my needle up, and raise up my presser foot. Bring the quilt forward. Grab those 2 threads and bring the bobbin to the top. There it is. For this technique, you have to have a long enough bobbin that we can thread it through later. I'll show you what I mean by that later. So now I can start quilting. Now on this machine, I don't need to drop the feed dogs or anything. I mean, feed dogs are already dropped, but I don't need to change anything else. And now I'm going to quilt. Now you'll notice when I quilt with this that I go a little bit slower, and I intentionally do larger stitches than normal. And come here to the top to where I'm going to stop, and do not do those tiny stitches I normally do. Again, I'm going to lift my presser foot. I'm going to bring the quilt forward. This is making those threads long, the bobbin one and the top. Going to put it back into place, lower my needle, raise it up, and raise up the presser foot again. Bring it forward. Now I'm going to lift these 2, whoops, there, until my bobbin comes up. Now I need to pull him again until he is long enough, because I need to be able to thread him through a needle. Now take my scissors, cut him off, and then pull it out. So now my bobbin and everything is back to where it was. I have these 2 long threads of bobbin thread. Can you see that? There we go. 2 long threads here on the back side of the quilt. Now I'm going to flip over the quilt, and this is what we stitched. All right. You know, I'm looking at this. Can you see that there? I'm not sure if you can tell. And here on the points, my bobbin is not loose enough. I need my bobbin to be loose enough so that it won't pull back on the top and or adjust my top tension. So those are things that I would look for when I'm doing this, and I would make those adjustments before I do the next one. But now we're going to go to the other machine. All right. So backing up. Ah, that was maybe a little close. All right. So now I'm going to work on my big machine. And then we'll actually work on the quilt I want to work at. So here I am. This is my Hobby 1200, the Grand Quilter. This is the basic quilting machine. You can purchase these, not this particular brand anymore, but there are other brands that have this kind of a quilting machine. I quilt on this all the time. I, again, highly, highly, highly recommend that if you're going to do your own quilting, you get yourself a machine, something like this, that is born and bred to be a machine quilter. Okay? All right, so now we're going to come on in again. Again, I found my little screwdriver, and we are going to get into the bobbin. This is a front load bobbin, so I'm going to take out my regular bobbin, and I'm going to adjust the tension. Now on this machine, let's see, it's right there. It's this screw. This is the screw that adjusts the tension on the bobbin. So on this machine, I'm going to adjust this 1/2 and 1/4. You know, one thing other people do is they'll actually write down what they adjusted, put it on a Post-it note, and put that on the top of the machine so that they will remember to move it back again when they start doing regular quilting. Now I'm going to put my bobbin in. You know, winding the bobbin is something else that it really is determined by your machine. Oops, I just put that in backwards. That's embarrassing. Okay. There. Back to winding the bobbin. Winding these heavyweight bobbins on a machine is very specific to each machine. I wish I had one of those side winders, which are the little contraptions that wind bobbins that are off your machine because it's got more control to it. I don't have one, so oftentimes I just end up hand rolling it onto the bobbin. So now I'm going to put that into my machine. Just like with the other machine, I need to bring my needle down and up so that I can bring my bobbin thread to the top. So there is, can you see that? There is my bobbin thread up to the top. Put my cap on. All All right, so now I'm going to ask Athena to move back a little bit so I can bring in, oh my goodness, if you would just pause for a second. I forgot my sample piece at the other machine. Commercial time. Sorry. Okay, so I need to do my practice piece on this machine. So let's try and get us as much light as possible. Okay, so like I did on the other machine, first thing I need to do is bring my bobbin to the top. So I'm going to drop my needle, bring my needle up. My presser foot is lifted, and I'm going to bring it forward until I can, there it is, found the bobbin. Now I'm going to go back into position, drop my feed dogs, and I'm going to put my needle down again. So now I'm going to do a little quilting. So I've got to do a little test quilting before I actually do it on my quilt. And, you know, generally speaking, people do this on, before they free motion quilt on with any thread. I'm usually not as prone to do that, but for this I definitely will. All right, come to the end, lift my needle, lift my presser foot, bring the quilt forward, put it back into position, again, drop my needle, bring it forward, and find the bobbin. There it is. And then grab a little pair of scissors without getting in front of the camera. And there we are. So there's my long bobbins, and there's my test. This one turned out really good. I did use an orange thread, so it coordinated with the heavyweight thread I was working on, and I don't think it's not pulling here in the bobbin. So I really like that. So Athena, back up a second. Not all the way, but a little bit, because before we work on the quilt, I want to show you, I keep telling you to keep your bobbins long. This is what you need to do. With this kind of quilting, if you just do a regular knot lock, you're going to end up seeing a big mess of this thick thread. So this is definitely one of those times where you need to thread your threads, oops, if we can get it into this needle, into the inside of the quilt, so amongst the batting. There, did I get it? Closer. It'd be nice if I was using a larger eye needle. But we can make this work. At least I think we can. One more time. Cut it off a little bit. Squeeze it in there. Oh my goodness. This is my last try. If it doesn't work this time, all right, you're going to have to just trust me. You thread the needle and then you take it through the inside of the quilt so it's hidden within the batting and cut it off. That's going to be a very secure locking. So now I want to do this on the actual quilt. So I've got that fabulous orange thread, and the idea, hold on one second. Oh, there it is over there. Sorry. So trying to decide what I would use on this quilt. You can see these fabulous purple and orange colors. I'm going to use this, which is a YLI metallic rayon. This is, again, I got this a couple years ago. No, I'm sorry, it is not YLI. It is Wonderfill. This is a Wonderfill thread. It's about the thickness of a size, maybe size 5 pearl cotton. So thicker than a 12, because a size 12 you can actually put through your needle. So it's more like a size 5. And I'm going to drop it onto this. And then I can see how fabulous that's going to look. Can you see that? So that's kind of sort of how I decided that I wanted to do this, okay? So I'm going to put this thread off. I did wind up my bobbin already. So now the question becomes, how do I know where I'm going to do the quilting? I know where I'm going to do the quilting because I already did a straight line right there. Here, I'm going to take the camera from Athena for a second. when I was doing, our arms were tired anyway. Okay, so when I started my quilting, first thing I always do is this line of stay stitching, this line of quilting that I call on the ledge of the border, and then I do my other work within, and I've been working on the quilting here. But I always do a line of quilting here at the edge of the quilt to hold the border in place while I'm doing the quilting. Hi, Chris, how are you? I haven't seen you in an age. Okay, sorry. So this is how I'm going to know how to quilt. Because I've got this line of stitching and this line of stitching, I will be able to know where to quilt it. So if I flip over to the back side, okay, this is like the super fabulous fabric I got in Tanzania. I was in Africa on a missions trip, and I went to a fabric shop there. Oh my goodness, it was like total heaven. So you can see this is my line of stitching and this is my line of stitching. I need to keep my quilting within those two lines of stitching. So from the back side, I know where to quilt. All right, Athena, you ready? Okay, she's going to take this again, and I'm going to go into position to where I want to do the quilting. So right here, I know that this is the cornerstone. I don't want to quilt in the cornerstone. I want to start right here. Gonna bring my needle down, my needle up. My presser foot is already lifted. Bring the quilt forward. Sorry, I hate to have my hand in front of it, but I can't help it. There. There is the thread from the bobbin. There. Into position. Work with my needle down and drop my presser foot. I'm going to do the quilting now, so I'm probably not going to do the whole thing. So let's see how far we can go. You know, the other thing about working with the bobbin is the bobbin thread is really, really thick, so you're not going to be able to get that much on the bobbin. You will have to change up and refill your bobbin a couple times. I'll usually refill 4 or 5 before I start. All right. As I mentioned before, I do a slower speed, and I, on purpose, do a bigger stitch length than I would normally do with free motion quilting, because I want that thread to rest up big and strong on the top of the quilt. I'm trying not to be distracted by the glittery parts of the fabric. Oh my goodness, it's so pretty. Okay. So I'm just doing just a couple of these free motion leaves that are kind of like a feather but pointed at the end, which I think will work well with this particular quilt design. Let's do one more. Come down here because this would be a great place to hide my thread. Stop, lift my needle, lift my presser foot, bring the quilt forward, find the top thread, back into position, drop my needle, bring it back up, bring the quilt forward again, and holding the threads to bring the bobbin up, which, as you can see, can be a little bit tricky. Oh, come on. There he is. All right, found my bobbin thread, get my little scissors, and cut that off. Pull it out to the bobbin. All right, so these would be the long threads that I would be able to thread into a large high needle to get it inside of the quilt, and I'm going to flip it over, and my fingers are crossed. Ooh, check that out. That is very, very flashy quilting on the edge of this. Now, I did go over my border here a little bit. I'll figure out what to do there. I've got a loose string here. I'll figure that out. But I really like the look of this. And that is bobbin quilting. So, I hope you enjoyed your little stay in my studio again. This is bobbin work. It's really fun. It does take more practice, some confidence, not only with your threads and machine, but because it is so showy, you've got to know that what you're quilting you're going to like, because everybody is going to see it. I really hope you enjoyed this, and have a great weekend.